Hey everyone, this is Jono from Veracity with another video in my video series. This one talking a little bit about activity types and how we use them in the Veracity LRS. A lot of people talk about xAPI verbs and how important they are, and sure, they're important, but I would say there are several other parts of the xAPI that are often not used. That are debatably more important than verbs. I think activity types may be one of them. So no slides today. We're just going to talk a little bit about the spec and then do a little bit of a demonstration. So first the spec. All right, so when I'm talking about the type, what I'm referring to is this activity definition, often the object of a statement. So, I did this, it's the this part. There can be a definition, and, that's where you have things like the name and description of the course or the lesson or the video. There's also this IRI that defines the type. So it is the type of activity. Like verbs that have a set of verbs, there is a completed verb or a past verb or a scored verb, and you should not recreate them. If they already exist, types work very similarly. What I have here, and I'll put the links to this stuff in the description, is the Rustici created registry of xAPI concepts. And you'll note that I have the activity types tab selected, and these are all of the activity types that folks in the community have defined and then got listed here. So let's say you wanted to track some data about a course, and you wanted to know, what is the course? I'm just going to search for course, and there you go. This is the IRI for a course. In this particular repository, there are at times duplicates, but for the most part, these are mutually exclusive, and you should be able to find the one most appropriate activity type. Okay. So how do you use these things? Let's just go into, I have two different LRSs open. Let's start with my test LRS. I have it zoomed in a little bit. I'm going to go into my statements, and I'm going to do a little bit of configuration here. I am going to add a custom path, just as we've been talking, object, definition, type. I want to see those IRIs. You can see in some cases we didn't have them, but eventually we get into them. So the best way to see what's in here is use the spread operators, the little 1-2 by object type. And this will show you all the different object types that are used in the system, and then how many occurrences in statements that we have of these. So yeah, this gives you an idea of what's here. We can further filter on these and say, for example, show me the data for courses. So that in itself is pretty useful. When you're first looking at the statement viewer, you're seeing data about videos and lessons and courses and you name it, it's in here. What if you just want to look at courses where people are interacting with courses? Well, the object definition type is a way to do that. Not a single course, any course. And let's say, I don't know, these are all attempts. You can then narrow down further and say, I see some initialized here. I just want to see courses that people had attempted. I added a filter on the attempted verb, and now we are indeed in this data set just looking at attempts of things that are courses. And in this case, it's golf example, Paul xAPI, and zombie apocalypse. So yeah, that in itself is pretty useful. Let's just go a step further. I don't know if there's any in this data set, but let's give it a shot. I'm going to remove these filters, and if not, I have another LRS available. CMI interaction. Yeah, here's another good one. So by type, CMI interaction. So now again, I'm just looking at any interactions with objects that are CMI interaction type. These are questions. So, this is sample data, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. But now you're looking at all of the answers to particular questions. Any question, not a single question. So again, pretty useful. I want to go one step further, though, because, filtering is very useful. Being able to kind of What we get all the time is, hey, I'm looking at a bar chart and I want to know the, things that are interacted with the most in a time period. And you get a bar chart of stuff, but the things in the bar chart are not equal. Sometimes it's a video, sometimes it's a lesson, sometimes it's a course, sometimes it's a lesson and then followed by a course that the lesson is in. And the bar chart is kind of hard to make sense of because you are looking at things that are not equal granularity. So, being able to do things like filter in your bar chart based on the definition type are very important and allow you to kind of have a lowest common denominator of what you're looking at so it makes more sense. Anyway, I'm going to pop into this guy e-learning example. Let's see what data this one has. I'm really just winging it here, but I'm going to do the same thing. Configure. I'm going to add object definition type, add that field. All right, let's take a look at all the stuff that's in here. Oh, this is great. So in this case, we have lessons, but we also have videos that are in here. So this is great. What we might want to do is, just filter based on, this introduction, for example, video. So I'm just going to go ahead and filter by that. And now, of course, we're looking at everything that's typed video because we are looking at the same object. The object's this introduction to xAPI. But here's the thing I really wanted to show. I want to pop over into the analytics platform graphs for this particular object. And I think I created this data a while ago, so I'm just going to do all time instead of the last 90 days. Now note, when you are in here, the little information panel here at the top talks about, we're looking at an activity. This activity is an intro to xAPI. It's got this IRI. This is the identifier for it. And we know it is a type video. Well, that's important. So these are pretty general graphs, activity over time and, what verbs and, that kind of thing. But down here, you'll see we start to get into something a bit more interesting. This graph at the bottom is a histogram based on the video profile. And what it is showing is out of the 365 times that this thing has been viewed, these are the segments that were viewed. So you can see a lot of people watch the beginning here because it's brighter, and then it trails off, and then it really trails off, and then some people pick up here right at the end. I don't know, probably just skipping to the end to let the last few seconds play, and then basically nobody watches the very end. They just kind of skip to the end. Again, this is a bad example because it's just example data. But you get the idea. Because the graphing platform knows that this thing is a type video, we render a special graph that shows you the interactivity that only makes sense in a video based on the video profile. So this is an example of something that is pre-canned that you get out of the box. We do the same thing for CMI interactions, questions on an assessment. Plug to my last little mini series that I did on CMI interactions and assessment data. But anyway, we know to render those graphs. Render a multiple choice, graph or a true-false graph that does, shows like test item analysis data. Well, how do we do that? Well, we know it is a CMI interaction, and therefore we're able to render a relevant graph. However, don't go by just what we're doing here on the screen. This does make sense for the default behaviors, but when you are also creating your own analytics, doing your own reports and your own dashboards, you can use that activity type. Maybe your videos, you want to show a special, report or a couple of different graphs that don't make sense for other data types or lessons or courses or, you name it. So this activity type, again, I think is just as important as things like verbs or actors, which folks talk a lot about. Sometimes the authoring tools leave these things out. Sometimes they don't, but it's a good practice to get them in your data, and then you can make use of that stuff later. All right, so I think that's a pretty high level but decent overview of these activity types. Again, please use them if you can. If you enjoyed this video, click the thumbs up and or subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a good one.